Thanks a lot, Bhaskar, for joining today for the leadership series session with you. And just to introduce the platform, YDMA or Young Digital Managers Association is a community of technology leaders who are maybe one rung away from becoming CIOs themselves. And it has been started by CIO Association of India, which is the largest group of CIOs anywhere in the world, with about 3,500 members across many cities in India and 3 locations outside of India as well. And CIO Association holds national level and state level events to enrich the knowledge of CIOs. And this initiative is to bring those benefits and insights to one level below. And a key part of this platform is the leadership lesson, which we've been running since January this year. That was when YDMA was launched. And we have received several luminaries to this platform. Manoj Kohli was the first one, the erstwhile Bharti Airtel CEO. We had Dr. Kiran Kanik, who spoke here, Harish Mehta, who was the co-founder of NESCOM, Manoj Chuk. So we've had an illustrious lineup of speakers in leadership series, and our members have benefited a lot from those insights. And today, of course, we have the privilege of hosting you, Bhaskar, for this conversation. So I'll just briefly introduce Bhaskar Pramanik and set the stage and expectation for this session before I hand over to Bhaskar. So Bhaskar Pramanik, as many of you might know, is one of the best-known technology sector leaders in India. I have personally had the good fortune of knowing him for about maybe 28 years or thereabouts. I have no hesitation in saying that many leaders in the current who are currently leading companies in India in technology space, they have been mentored by him during his stint at Sun Microsystems, which was a pioneering company in its own day. And then, of course, he went on to head, or rather become the chairman of Microsoft in India. After his executive positions in these leading companies, he was on board of State Bank of India, the largest public sector bank in the country. Also on Route Mobile and TCNS, the clothing company. He currently advises KPMG, TBO, NAB, GCC, and he's on several government committees. And of course, he keeps a close watch on the tech space in India and the startup ecosystem and so on. So he's a veteran in the IT sector in India and one of the tall leaders in the space. So very privileged to have you with us, Bhaskar, for this conversation.
Thank you.
And the format, as everyone knows on this call, is that first, we'll invite you to speak for about 15 minutes extempore, your thoughts on leadership. What does it really mean to you personally? And how do technology leaders become general business leaders? And how do they make that transition to the next stage in their careers? Given your rich career and legacy, we'll love to hear a few anecdotes from your own career and life, so that we can take away some of those stories as well. And after about 15-20 minutes, we'll open up for Q&A. So all the participants are requested to type their questions in the chat space, and I will then pick up the questions and put them to Bhaskar. I may have some of my own questions, which I'll use my privilege as the chair to ask Bhaskar as well. So all in all, we expect a great session and some very good insights coming from this. So with that, Bhaskar, I'll hand over the floor to you for you to present your opening remarks.
Sure, thank you. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and especially with youngsters who are, just at the cusp of making a breakthrough in terms of their career.
Yeah.
And, like you mentioned, the transition from becoming a functional or a technology leader to a business leader is what everybody aspires to. And quite a few people do it, but obviously it's always very rare at the top position. There's only a few who can make it to the top. When we think about technology, we normally keep referring to information technology. But frankly, a lot of industries are actually powered by technology. So whether you look at information technology, or whether you look at automobiles, or whether you look at the semiconductor or life sciences, these are very heavy technology-oriented companies. So when you think about people who were functional leaders, technology heads who have become CEOs in their respective industries, there's quite a few examples. And the best and the easiest one is to talk about the information technology industry, because if you think about two of the largest information technology companies, which is Microsoft and Google, both are headed by what you would call techies. And how they make that transition is perhaps what I will sort of talk about in terms of what made them different, why did they get selected and perhaps not others, because there are lots of people in these industries which are very, very functionally competent. Before I do that, I thought, let me just talk about what leadership is to me. What do I mean that when you say somebody is a leader? We use that term very frequently. We want everybody to be a leader. Frankly, if everybody is a leader, you got chaos. So it's really what we are saying is that we want people to have leadership attributes. And those leadership attributes are very, very many. But those have to translate into behaviors. And therefore, at the individual level, what leadership behaviors would you show? At the manager level, what leadership behaviors would you show? And then at the enterprise or at the corporate level, what behaviors you show are really very different. They're all oriented and based on the same set of attributes, but it means different at each one of those levels. You cannot expect somebody who's at the individual level and say he's a leader, therefore he's recognized as a leader, and therefore as a leader, his first thing would be to say, then I should help determine business strategy. It doesn't work that way. It's leadership, but at the individual level. So I'm going to be talking about what I mean by leadership at the business or at the enterprise level. And to me, just to keep it simple, there are only three things which good leaders do. Number one is that they create clarity. So whether you're at an individual level or at a manager level or at a business level, it's a question of the clarity of purpose which you have. How clear are you about your role, about others, about what you are going to achieve? And it's the same, that clarity of thinking, except the scope is much bigger when you're doing it at the level of a business, at this level of the CEO, as distinct from a CXO or as distinct from a individual contributor. So it's very, very critical that, you understand that one of the key outcomes or one of the key leadership traits is about creating clarity. When somebody comes to you and says and asks your opinion on strategy or on a particular job which they're supposed to do, it's your ability to give that clarity of thinking, which is so. One of the hallmarks of a great leader is to create clarity. The second hallmark of a great leader is about creating energy or generating energy. That's what they do. They inspire the whole company. They inspire the whole department. They inspire everybody around them. And that is a very critical requirement. It's about generating energy within the organization. And the last one is about creating success. It's delivering success. It's all great leaders throughout their history have demonstrated that in whatever role they have generated success, not just for themselves, but for others around them. You cannot be a leader if you cannot make your followers successful. So just think about leadership from those three perspectives, about creating clarity, about generating energy, and about delivering success. And I can talk about each one of these subjects for hours, but let's keep it at that. So next thing which I wanted to talk about is what differentiates a technology leader from a business leader. And how do you make this transition? So first of all, technology leadership is about functional leadership. It's about functional excellence. And all of you can understand that because your functions are clearly defined. And you may have multiple functions under you, may have a single function, you may just have a single role. But each one of those, the ability to be excellent in that is what describes you as a technical person, whether you're an automotive engineer or whether you're an IT engineer. So functional excellence is what describes you. So that is the limit which is put on you. So if anybody comes to you with a problem, your first outlook is to say, okay, perhaps this kind of technology will help solve the problem. But at the business leadership level, life is not as simple as that. It's not, you can't have a hammer like, I've got an excellent technology team, now let's look for me to make a problem to solve. I remember once when I was on the board of SBI, the chairperson asked me this question that I want to use AI within the company. And I said, let's first sit down and brainstorm as to what exactly are the problems we want to solve. And it may turn out that you can solve it other than using AI. So let's be very clear about what is the problem which you're trying to solve. So that's the difference between a functional leadership versus a business leadership. So therefore, one of the key requirements is that a technology leader must evolve into a business influencer. And I've seen this in many of the companies where I'm on the board of, plus the companies I work for, that they tend to be very narrow-minded. They're waiting for instructions, what is the problem to solve, and then they figure out the way to solve it. I mean, it's a typical engineer mentality. You input A, process inside the system, and then outcome B. You tell me what outcome B you want, and you tell me what is the inputs, and I'll tell you how to go about solving it. That's typically the way engineers solve problems. But unfortunately, real life is not that simple. It's not just simple, physics. It's actually a lot of organic chemistry, where there are many other things which you can put into the mix, which can actually make the whole thing much more potent. So therefore, technology leaders need to understand that unless they understand the business requirements, and unless they can actually influence businesses, they will have a tough time moving from a technology or a functional leadership to a business leadership. The third thing, which is more important, is that at the business leadership level, it requires something called strategic foresight, and cross-functional fluency. That means you need to be able to influence across functions, not just within your own domain. And number two is you need to have the strategic foresight. I think what makes people like Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella great is their ability to see around corners. That's what great CEOs do. And again, it's irrespective of whether it's in the technology industry or the life sciences or other. They see the future, they look at it with a different lens, and then they figure out how they should get there. One of the tragedies of most large corporations is that 90% of the people are in the here and the present, and they're trying to solve today's problems. When you're the CEO of the company, or even at the CXO level, you're thinking 3 years ahead. And and you have to make choices because you cannot cover all aspects. And I think that's what Satya did. That when he took over from Steve Ballmer, he painted a picture of the future. He realized that what made Microsoft successful till date was not going to make it successful in future. And he changed the whole orientation of the company in terms of its strategic thinking. And and then he had to make those hard choices. Which way is the company going to go? Which way is technology going to go? Which way is the market going to go? And how do I change, a mammoth like Microsoft and reorient it in that direction? And I know that Sundar Pichai did exactly the same thing. Time will tell whether he's made the right choices, but having worked for Microsoft, I know that, Satya has taken those right choices. The last area where I think there needs to be a big differentiation is that when you're a functional leader or a technology or a functional leader, you have a very narrow view of the world. And people believe that the higher your IQ, the more successful you will become. But the transition from functional or technology leader to the business leadership actually requires a dramatic move from pure IQ to what I call EI, from emotional intelligence. That means it's not just how intelligent you are, but it's how good you are from an emotional intelligence perspective. And the formula I use for emotional intelligence is really based upon how self-aware are you, how self-regulative are you, what is your motivation, how empathic are you, and what are your social skills. And just to give you an example, Satya Nadella is perhaps one of the most empathic people I've ever come across. He does not sit with you across the table and just ask you questions for the sake of it. He asks you questions because you want to understand your position, rather than jumping straight in and saying, here's my greatest products and you should be using it. That's the way normal CEOs behave. That, look, I've got the world's best products. Why don't you use it? And they try to build relationships. But empathy is about understanding the other person's position. What is his problems? Get him to start thinking. So, for example, even when I was the chairman of Microsoft, and I used to make customer calls, my discussions with CEOs was never about our products or technology or cloud or AI or Office 365 or Dynamics. I used to ask him just 3 questions. What is it that you want to do which you couldn't do before? What is it that you want to do which your competition are doing? And what is it that you want to bring up in your organization, which will help you to leapfrog your competitors? None of this is technology related. And that's what the conversation was all about, because from those, you would get a better sense of how you can serve them. So it's very, very critical and very important to be empathic. I want to talk a little bit about self-awareness, because the audience is at an age when you have to become self-aware. I think the biggest challenge which most people have around the mid-30s is the fact that they don't know themselves enough, or if they do know themselves, they want to hide their weaknesses. And by the age of mid-30s, you have to be very self-aware. You have to understand what are you good at, what you will never be good at, and you need to find happiness and peace with that. Because there are certain things you can change or learn, but there are many things which you will never be the best at, and that's where teamwork and collaboration is required. And if you don't recognize that, you will be like a cowboy trying to to shoot your way out of any kind of trouble. So I just wanted to highlight that the emotional intelligence is about self-awareness, self-regulatory, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And I just touched a little bit about self-awareness and empathy. So what are the key competencies which a business leader needs to have? Number 1 is business acumen. Now, business acumen is to understand your company's revenue models, and you need to understand your customers' needs. And again, let me talk about Satya Nadella. When Satya was heading the cloud platform engineering team in Microsoft, he used to come to India and visit other countries. And his first question was, Bhaskar, set up a set of meetings for me. I want to meet the biggest advertising professionals and set up a round table, and I want to come and talk to them. He'd come with me to customer calls. And again, like I said, his question, he used to spend more time listening than actually. But from that, you were able to understand how the market dynamics were changing. And then when he became the CEO, he continued to listen. And based upon that, he created and changed the organizations in terms of its programs, in terms of its initiative. I still remember that when he first time he came to India, I knew him much before that, but when he first came to India and we were on a car ride to the central part of Bombay, to the Oberoi, he asked me, how you guys doing? Just a simple question. And I told him, we're great. We're actually number 1 in most of the industries. He says, how are you doing with the e-com companies? I said, the e-com companies don't want us. They're very clear that they understand technology better. For them, a proof of concept is 2 days. A pilot is in 7 days, and then they want to take the decision immediately after that. And they're very, clear that they want it at the cheapest cost possible. It's very difficult for us to serve those kinds of customers. He says the biggest consumer of technology is going to be the e-commerce and the .com companies. So please try and work out what their requirements are in India, and then let's figure out what are the different programs or initiatives which you can have to work with them. So, it's very critical in understanding that business acumen is important. And the business acumen really comes primarily from customers. Most of the IT professionals I meet even now, including the CIOs of large corporations, they don't meet customers. Right? So therefore, they don't understand. They're learning it from the executives. But, I would suggest to everybody, take the opportunity, go meet your largest customer and understand from them what they're looking at. It's not necessarily how happy or unhappy they are with your current product, but just ask what the problems they're having, how they're using your products, and then what further problems can be solved. It's important. It doesn't matter which part of IT you're in. Number 2 is strategic thinking. Again, I've noticed, for example, I'm on the board of a small finance bank. And when they used to make the IT strategy committee meetings, they used to say, we need so much of money for this particular project. And I used to say, yeah, that's great. But tell me, number 1, what is the outcome you want to get? They said, nobody's asked us for that. They just told us that, solve this problem. I said, no, but the problem has to have a business case. Without a business case, there's no point in spending money. How we are going to solve that problem, what form of technology, that can be a separate discussion. But first of all, let's establish that there are positive outcomes out of this. And yes, number 2, I want to look at your existing projects, which you have already executed, and let's look at what are the returns we're getting from that. Not how much we want to measure you, not by how much you're spending or whether you're spending on time, but more important, and you're spending adequately, but more important, what are the outcomes which you are generating? So you have to become a strategic thinker. 1 second, sorry. You have to become a strategic thinker. So it's very critical and important that you have to be a strategic thinker. Number 3, I think, is that when we are in the functional leadership, we are not very good at finance. Yes, we can add up numbers. We can perhaps look at the P&L statements, especially now because everybody's investing in the stock market. So, there would be opportunities for us to understand what is the balance sheet, capital spending, whether this should be an OPEX or whether it should be capital. I think a lot of the IT folks really are getting into that conversation. But understanding the overall P&L of your company or your customer's P&L and being able to justify costs and investment is very, very critical. I still remember that early days, there was a petroleum refinery in Hyderabad, and they were looking to buy a full-fledged enterprise system. Those were the days of ERP. And I asked him the CIO, it wasn't the CEO, the CIO, to explain to me his requirements. Very bright guy, very strong technology guy. And he explained to me what the business they were in, what they were looking at, what were the kind of return. And then he said that this is the budget I have, and there's another competitor of yours who has given it to me at this budget. And then I told him that, look, have you thought this through over the next 5 years? And have you understood the costs involved as you become bigger, as you try to scale your system? And then when we went through that whole process, he says that, how much would it cost me? And I said, if you want that solution from us, it would cost you, and I gave him a figure which was 2x of what the competitor was offering. But I said that if you don't want this, you don't want this, and you don't want this, I can give it to you at the same price. He decided to go with us at 2x because he understood that he hadn't scoped the problem adequately enough. So sometimes when you tell the customer that you can't afford me, sometimes it's a good decision because then it makes him think why. And that's one of the things which financial literacy is very, very critical and very important whenever you're transitioning from a pure technology to a business leadership. The other competency, we've talked about business acumen, strategic thinking, financial literacy. The 4th is cross-functional influencer. When you're a functional leader, you tend to influence people around you and in your department, in your particular function. But the ability to basically do cross-functional influencing is very, very critical. And this I've observed in most companies, that even large companies, when you have the CXOs, and I asked these CXOs that when you go to a particular branch, do you call everybody in for a town hall or do you only talk to your people? 90% of the people only talk to their own people. They don't talk to the other organization. Whether it's a finance guy, marketing guy, a pure functional guy, they don't talk to anybody else, including in some of the largest consulting companies. So therefore, what happens is, in a large consulting company, advisory doesn't talk to the audit people don't talk to the advisory people, I mean, at the branch level or in a collective organization or a large town hall. And that is a challenge, because that means that when they become the CEO, they will not be able to bring everybody together. And finally, I think, the functional to enterprise leadership, it's about inspiration. It's about your own leadership identity. Who are you? And how can you inspire teams? And how can you own the narrative and the story so that people will actually follow you? So these are the 5 competencies: business acumen, strategic thinking, financial literacy, cross-functional influencing, and leadership identity. So at the end, I just wanted to conclude by saying that, look, from moving from technology to transformation, you have to lead with outcomes, not just outputs. You have to translate technology into business impact. You have to champion change across systems. You have to impact the culture and the mindset of people. Technology is a strategic lever, and it's not just a support function. You have to sincerely believe that. And the best technology leaders don't build systems, they build belief. So if you are today at the CXO -1, these would be the advice I give you. And perhaps we can have another talk as to how you can develop those skills. But this is where I would like to pause.
Okay, thank you very much, Bhaskar. Fantastic insights. I think a great, North Star for everyone on this call to aspire towards and work towards. I have a few questions for you, Bhaskar, if I may.
Sure.
You spoke about Satya and how his competencies and what defines him as a good business leader. Question is, are leaders born or are they made? Satya was one among a few 100,000 engineers in the company who rose through the ranks and so on. And even at his level, when he became the CEO, there would at least be half a dozen other people. So what sets apart a leader like that? Do they come with inherent leadership capabilities, or they can be developed by someone? If you're self-aware, you know what your limitations are, should you still aspire towards overcoming them and becoming a leader?
Yeah, so I would say that it's 50-50. Some of them are people are born with those traits. You can make it out with children, college students, even early, interns, or you can make out that some of them have those attributes which are required. But it is the experience which hones that and which makes some of these, more sharper than the others. And that's where, a guy like Satya, yes, he always had an IQ. He always was very, his EQ skills were phenomenal. He used to read a lot. He had an opinion on a wide variety of subjects, describes most Indian. But I think he honed on his empathy. He honed on his strategic thinking, and he honed on his collaboration, which helped him then to bring about such a massive change in a company like Microsoft. Short answer to your question, 50% is inherent, 50% is what you actually develop. I think the most important thing is, like I said, you have to be self-aware by your mid-30s when you know what you will never be good at, and then you surround yourself with people who are better than you in those. Never fear of somebody stronger than you, because you need those threads at times when at the critical moments in your life.
Yeah. So would you say that being an engineer is actually a disadvantage? Because as you said, you are strong in physics, but maybe not so strong in, organic chemistry or, in the arts of...
Yeah, so this transition from functional, so functional excellence is all about is competency, your technical competency. But business leadership is technical competency plus what I would call the EQ.
Yeah, okay.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So someone wants you to repeat, Viresh wants you to repeat 5 points: business acumen, strategic thinking, cross-functional influence, and you mentioned financial literacy as being one of them. What was the 5th one he's asking?
The fifth one was about leadership identity. You need to create your own leadership identity to be able to inspire teams and to own the narrative in terms of what you want to go out and achieve.
Is it same as having a leadership style, a unique style of your own?
See, a style is different from an attribute or a specific capability. A style is how you do it. But having it is important. But then how do you execute or implement it is different.
Yeah.
For example, Steve Ballmer, the way he would inspire teams and how he would do his narrative was all about rah, rah, rah. It's like a football coach, right? He said, let all the people in, let's motivate them, let them go out, let's hire the best. And if they fail, then we throw them out and get another set of people. That was his style.
Yeah.
While Satya was a quiet listener, thinking, he'd make his points at the appropriate time, but he's not the rah-rah kind of a guy. Let's go out and conquer the world. Let's screw the competition. I mean, that's the way Steve Ballmer used to talk. And Satya was absolutely, we respect competition.
Yeah. And both of them were good leaders in their own right. Maybe right for the time that they were leading the organization.
Yeah, and again, I can give you some other anecdotes. When I was in Oracle for a brief while, for one year, I remember we used to have a actual campaign to actually both Oracle and Microsoft. When I joined Microsoft, also they used to have this anti-piracy drive. They used to call up people and say your licenses are no longer valid. You haven't renewed them. Yeah, so we'll turn off your listing. And I made it a point that both in Oracle and in Microsoft actually switched it off because salespeople were using that as a way of meeting their targets. And this was the era of software licensing. I said, we will go to our customers and explain to them the value of our products and services. If they like it, they will pay for it. If they don't want to pay for it, treat it as a marketing.
Yeah.
You will not get revenue because you had KPMG or a Price Waterhouse go and tell them I'll sue you.
Yeah, great. Yeah. A couple of great questions are coming in from the audience. Lakshmi Priya asks, do programs like MBA still hold value in this day to transition to business leadership from tech leadership? Is there value in formal MBA education?
Yeah, so, I just, the only degree I have is from IIT Kanpur. I did do a 3-year MBA program while I was working in the 70s or somewhere early 80s at Bajaj Institute in Bombay. I was working at that time in Nalco, and I did the 3-year program, but and this was part-time. Unfortunately, one paper I did not have enough. Unfortunately, after I gave the final exams, I got A+ in all of them, but I didn't have sufficient attendance. All that meant was I had to do an additional semester, and attendance was in one basic area, which was marketing. Which I felt at that time already a GM, so I said, who is going to teach me marketing? So that arrogance, I didn't go back, and I missed that degree. But when I joined Digital, I told them I want a management education executive program, and I joined the product management program in Stanford, a marketing program. And I enjoyed it. It was remember, the hallmarks of a good leader is clarity.
Yeah.
Any education, whether it is part-time, full-time, is not about passing an exam and getting a degree. Is it about helping you to structure your thoughts, whether it is about your career, whether it is about specific areas of topics? That's what it helps you. And that is very, very critical and important. In isolation of that, it's very difficult for you to get that clarity of thinking. So I would say just for that one reason, these degrees are important, or this participation in these programs are important.
Okay, thank you.
Besides the second point, which is you make networks.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Especially if you are at one of the marquee institutions.
Those networks are very, very critical. And again, like I talked about EQ, social skills, That ability to be able to influence others comes because you're able to network with people, talk to them, get a better understanding. Your cultural, attributes become much better, and therefore it helps you to improve on your job.
Yeah. Thank you. Vikas has asked, leadership is not just about size. Would you agree? I assume he means that size of the organization and its leadership in the market.
No, it's not about size. I don't think leadership is about size. Leadership, like I mentioned, you can be a leader at the individual level, at a department level, or at the enterprise level. The hallmarks of a true leader are the same. It's about clarity, energy, and making others successful. You can practice them in each one of those three areas. If your organization is 200,000, becoming a business leader is that much more tough because of all the competition, but then it enables you to stand out. So it's not a function of the size of the organization.
Yeah. In fact, it may be worthwhile honing your leadership skills when the scale is still small. Your own team and your
First, start with yourself. Then you start thinking about how you impact larger groups before you can talk about the enterprise level. Yeah.
Great point. Another question from Amir. What is the probability that a technology person or a business analyst can become CEO of a non-IT company? So these are techies working in non-IT companies. Can they become CEOs? And if yes, what is required? Do you require sales exposure? What do you need to? I think you didn't answer, but specifically for non-IT, would you have any nuance for them to consider?
No, I think it's equally the same. I think it's tougher if it's in a non-IT area, like automotive or life sciences. But these days, the opportunities are huge. So it's a question of how much of that business sense you've been able to acquire, and your strategic thinking and your collaboration and influencing, which will then enable whether you have an opportunity or not. But obviously, in the area of IT, again, if you think about IT today, it's such a vast area. So if today, for example, you're in the security function and you've been in security all your life, cybersecurity, to then go and become the head of Microsoft is going to be a tough challenge. But if you went and became, went out and became the head of a smaller security company, you have a better chance.
Yeah. Do you think age of AI? I mean, AI is now being integrated with businesses, and we have yet to see really a large-scale impact of AI on enterprise success. But assuming that the potential of AI is realized and it does become a strategic enabler of success for enterprises, does that elevate the role of IT in the companies? And does it then mean that IT can have more prominence and therefore a shot at the top office as well?
So I hate to be a dampener, but I've always believed that technology has a shelf life of a banana. You may be the best in AI today, but it's going to be short-lived. There'll be other new technologies which are coming up. So technology by itself is not going to make you shoot up in the ranks of the company.
So there's no shortcut.
There's no shortcut.
You still need to have business acumen, strategic insights.
Absolutely.
And so forth that you mentioned.
Right.
A very interesting question. I can't read the full name, but the question is, how do you energize people? Can you speak from your experience, either doing it for your own teams or for your leaders doing it for the organizations that you work with?
No, absolutely. I think, that's for a CEO, that's about 30% of his time is about energizing people. And most people get energized through your own behaviors. So when I was heading Sun Micro or subsequently in Microsoft, I used to travel regularly to the branch offices. I used to travel regularly into the engineering departments. And I used to talk and give town halls where I invited everybody in. And I used to spend a lot of time talking about customer successes. I used to spend a lot of time on what we are trying to do within, within India. What is the common purpose which we have across engineering, across sales and marketing, across finance, across HR? What is our common purpose? And remember, we had 7 subsidiaries. So we had engineering, we had R&D, we had consultancy, we had professional services, all serving the parent company. And how do you mold them all together? So therefore, to build that energy was to have, first of all, a common purpose, something which ties all of us together. So it's not just about the sales and marketing organization. That's simple. I've got the authority. I can do whatever I want. But with the others, you have no authority. So you need to understand that creating energy beyond, across boundaries within your own organization is very, very critical. Talking to people, sharing successes with them, sharing failures, becomes very, very critical. Number two is meeting customers. The best way to energize your own organization is by meeting customers. Have events. You'll get people coming in, insist on that. In fact, one of the rules I instigated in Microsoft was that every of our branch offices, regional offices, would have to host at least one customer event within the office every week. Otherwise, people were just sitting at in their office or going out and meeting customers, but the scale was limited. Every account manager had to be told that you have to meet every one of your customers at least 3 times physically throughout the year. So, understand that.
Yeah.
It's also about, the Gen Z. The Gen Z are different. The millennials are different. When I was in Microsoft, I realized that, I'm trying to do all of these things, but does it really make sense to this new workforce? So I actually got a management trainee, not management trainee, but she was a full-fledged employee. It was a she. And I asked her to become my mentor. And I used to sound out some of the strategies, some of the concern, and asked her, well, how would you feel about it if we did it this way? So it became important and that message then spread around. So I think it's the other way of charging or creating energy is by, involving the workforce. CSR is a very critical, getting them involved. It's not about just signing a check and giving it to somebody and doing some rah-rah on the occasion, but it's actually getting people. Gen Z like to be involved. They like to do something they're the brand. They want to go out and have impact on their own and because of their own capability. So things like this become very important. Diversity, I can tell you, it makes a huge difference. The higher the diversity, and diversity not just in terms of gender, but diversity in terms of age, diversity in terms of experiences or geographies. In Microsoft, for example, I used to have at least 2 people in the leadership team who were foreigners, who came here for a 3-year assignment. So, those kinds of things are what is important to communication becomes very important way of energizing. But people look at you, and if you don't have the energy, they don't have the energy. So every day you have to get up, and it may be the darkest day in your life, but you have to go out there and you've got to be able to talk to people and motivate them and charge them. It is very, very critical. And then you have to get your team to do that, because you can't do it all yourself. So you have to select a set of leaders who then propagate and do that the same way. And that's what Satya did. And culture plays a very critical role. You have to look at the culture of the organization. What is it today? What is missing? What more you need to do? Culture is the way people behave when nobody's looking at them. And that's why having an impact on culture is very, very critical. I mean, one of the ways or the strategy which Satya did to change the direction of the company was that he looked at our value system, he looked at our culture, and he says these are the areas which we need to focus on so that we become much more a successful company.
Correct. So great point. And it links back to your point about clarity as well. The more you speak with people, the more clarity you can provide about the line of sight between what they are doing and the organizational purpose and success factors.
That's right. Absolutely correct.
Especially for people who don't have visibility otherwise.
Absolutely.
Easy for them to be demotivated or feel less important and so on.
Right. And again, you can understand that when you have very large organizations, you have to use technology. So sometimes, when you got 3,000 people, the only way to communicate with all of them is through technology. So now that's possible.
Indeed, absolutely. Like this one.
Like this one.
Yeah.
But there's no substitute for physical.
Indeed, absolutely. That's absolutely true. Another question is about identity. You spoke about it. Can you throw some light on this? Suresh has asked.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of leadership identity is the purpose is to how do you inspire teams and how do you own the narrative? How good are you at storytelling? So that becomes a critical competency. I'm not talking about how you do it, but that's the attribute or trait which I think is important as a competency, about having your own unique leadership identity, which enables you to inspire teams and own the narrative.
Yeah. Question around AI. How do we move beyond the hype? Because currently the narrative is that it can do everything, and therefore it generates both enthusiasm and dread in equal measure. Some people believe that it's a recipe for, or rather panacea for every problem that the company faces. Others might feel that this will hollow out the company and so on. So how do we move beyond hype and understand the real role of AI? And what is the promise and potential and risk of AI?
So that's a completely different subject and a vast new topic. I'll just be as brief as I can based on my current experiences. So it started, initially with, so first of all, let's understand that AI in some form or the other has been there for the last 20 years. Now, whether we wanted to call it AI or not, but simple business logic itself is a form of AI. So we still had decision-making tools which basically use simple business logic. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this, so therefore it is this, and therefore this is what the answer is. I mean, even a lot of credit approval for banks were done on that simple method. Okay, so I think it's important to understand that there is nothing fundamentally new in terms of the outcomes which we are expecting, except that the tools have become much more sophisticated. So instead of your having to figure out that these are the only 4 parameters I can check, you can now write an algorithm and perhaps have access to data which enable you to take a much better, more holistic, informed decision. But the process is the same, but you have the tools now to be able to make that happen. Yeah. So like any other technology, like I said, all these technologies at different stages, whether it was, the business rules or whether it was a spreadsheet, which was the earliest form of, artificial intelligence, or whether you come to today's Gen AI or agentic AI, these are all different tools which you have. So the most important thing is understanding that these are very short shelf lives. What you have to do is to first figure out what is the business problem you're trying to solve. And then you have to figure out how do you use it to solve the problem. I mean, blockchain has been there for such a long time. And the problem with blockchain has always been that any problem you wanted to solve requires not just what you need to do, but what the people to whom the blockchain is going to be connected, what they need to do. That was outside of your powers. So therefore, very limited solutions have come out with blockchains because of the complexity in terms of building that intricate network of who benefits, what are you trying to solve for them, what rules do they require to happen. So that's why blockchain has become very. So same thing with AI. You have to first identify the problem. You've got to figure out how best to solve it. Perhaps AI is the best way to solve it. Then if it is AI, how are you going to adopt it? Give you an example. TBO, which is Travel Boutique Online, is a travel company listed last year, doing extremely well, growing at 30% per year, unicorn. They decided that there was one function which tied up 30% of their call center employees. That was that after a booking on a hotel has been made, and they're global, they had to go back to the hotel and get a confirmation number after the booking has been done. That itself took up 30% of their call center people. They just went to an agentic AI, very natural, which just talks to the hotel. The hotel person doesn't even know that it's an agentic AI, and they get the confirmation number. So suddenly they didn't need 30% of their, or they could reorient those 30% somewhere else. So the impact on profitability is actually, very, very substantial. Now,
and to your point, they were solving a real business problem as opposed to deploying AI for its own sake.
That's right. AI cannot be a hammer looking for a nail. You have to first identify the nails.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think AI has an immense opportunity. The way the problem which most companies have, they don't know how to put it into an organization. So I have found that the best way is to give those capabilities to individuals and let them enhance their own personal productivity as a first stage. That is immense. That itself will enable lesser people to do more work. And
That's
it's across different functions and departments, they will figure it out. But most IT people are reluctant to open the gates, the floodgates, and there are very valid reasons for that. The second thing is to identify at the CEO level specific areas which can either become more efficient, more better, which is customer facing or efficiency oriented. You've got to identify, is it customer quality related or is it efficiency? And then figure out how AI in its current form can be used or deployed to solve your problems.
Yeah, great point. Fully agree. Very interesting question from Said Rahman. How important is it to be honest and open in terms of leadership skills? Would you rather be tactful than honest, or where does that balance lie between being tactful and honest?
Okay, so you have to be always tactful as a CEO. That's very critical. But at the same time, integrity is your number one priority. So tactful does not mean you're going to lie. Tactful means how you present it and put forward. But you should be very clear that integrity and ethics is a non-negotiable. After that, it's for you to decide how you want to solve that problem. Whether you want to be tactful or a bull in a china shop, that's up to you to decide. That's your leadership trait.
Thanks. How do you create psychological safety for your organization? Because ultimately, if you live in fear, you probably get paralyzed and not be motivated.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, if I think about Oracle, that 1 year, I found that the employees were in a perpetual state of fear. Because it was a harsh organization. I mean, if you think about Oracle, it's a completely centrally driven organization.
Right.
Every permission comes from Redmond. It doesn't matter whether you want to hire a person, you want to put flowers in your table, or whether you want to, get a pay raise, or you want to get a discount for your customer. Everything is done from Redmond. So it's it thrives on fear.
Yeah.
Right. That's the mechanism for control. It's about fear. So, that was my experience. And that's why I went to Microsoft. When I went to Microsoft, it was organized chaos. And like I said, Steve Ballmer's mentality was hire the best people, give them the toughest jobs. If they fail, move them out, get a new set of people. So in a sense, there was this constant set of, I'm trying to prove all the time I'm the smartest person on the planet. Number two was to constantly say that the other person is at fault, to avoid that. That was not very helpful from a culture. When Satya came, he adopted a culture, what I call a growth mindset. A growth mindset is not how fast you grow the business. The growth mindset is that every human being has the opportunity for growth. Every human being learns from their mistakes. Every human being will realize its true potential if you create the right environment. And that's the culture which Satya wanted to put forward. And that, to me, throughout my career, that's what I felt was the most critical and important part of the organization. How do you create a culture of what I call the growth mindset, where people are fearless, they're okay in making mistakes, there's no fear of making nothing. They have what I call a learn it all culture versus I know it all and the customer is wrong. Okay, so that's the important thing. I learn it all, growth all the time, fearless. Like I said, culture is about how people behave when nobody's looking at them. If people are scared, then you're not going to get the best out of them.
Yeah. And it's surprising that though it's so commonsensical, it still is a missing element in so many companies, and companies which are otherwise successful. If you look at the metrics, market, share price and everything, but maybe they are not set up for the long term.
Correct. I think, it's a challenge. I mean, the IT industry is a relatively young industry compared to most of the others. But even if you look at the technology industry, look at the companies which are left behind. When I first started, there was a host of different companies. What's left out of that era is only IBM and HP. And subsequent to that, it's Microsoft. It was Microsoft and Intel, but Microsoft is still there because it changed. Otherwise, it has a near-death experience under Steve Ballmer. Right. But Intel is going down the tubes. They have not been able to figure out a way of getting out of there.
Yes, indeed, absolutely.
I remember when I was in the Bay Area, 2010, NVIDIA offered me a job in India. Unfortunately, they couldn't pay me enough, so therefore I had to say no. But at that point of time, I was also the account manager as part of my global role for Intel, for Sun Microsystems. And I can tell you they were arrogant as hell. And times change. Now, they used to sneer at Jensen Eck and NVIDIA. They used to sneer at AMD. They said, we're the hottest guys in the marketplace. This is the way we're going to drive the strategy in terms of CPU performance, etc., and parallel computing. And look where they've gone. They made the wrong choice. They're down the tubes, and Jensen Eck is smiling all the way to the bank.
Yeah. Just checking, did NVIDIA offer you stock options at that time?
Yes, but it still wasn't enough to compare to Microsoft.
I know. I'm just thinking, if you got some 10,000 shares at that time, what will they be worth currently?
Yeah, I know, but I don't think I lost out because Microsoft was also very generous. And
Sure,
Microsoft is also doing great. I mean, in terms of
absolutely, it's a $4 trillion company, so nothing to complain.
Yeah. And it's long-term based. I think Microsoft in the long term is geared for success. NVIDIA, if the China ban holds good, that's 30% of the market. They're in deep trouble.
Yes, agreed. Maybe it's the semi-final or the final question, depends on how this is addressed. In the era of remote and hybrid work, how can you foster innovation, collaboration, and strong organization culture? Because it's a reality. It's in the spread out world, people work across remote offices. How do you create that sense of ownership, collaboration, innovation?
No, you're absolutely correct. And in fact, in most of the boards I'm on today, we've actually discussed this and the conversations have been much more intense in the last couple of months. Because one thing we realized is that we're now feeling the impact of what happened during COVID when people joined and they were all over the place. That has had a great impact in terms of culture, in terms of beliefs, in terms of the structures of the organization, although all the tools exist to be able to work from home. And therefore, every single company I'm aware of has decided that people must come back to work. And therefore, they're building out their offices because the offices at one time shrunk to 50% of the requirement. But that had a great impact on team collaboration, on innovation, on customer sense, this thing, all the different things what makes an organization great. So I think it's that balance. Because, the problem is like this, I'm what is called and I'll talk about it, people talk about work-life balance. Mm-hmm. So succeeding generations have a different interpretation of work-life balance. So I'm what is called the baby boomers, born in the 50s. So we worked because we had to live. There was no other choice. So our vacations were on specific times. That's why all rules say only maximum you can take is 30 days. English leave is 12 or 15, depending on the organization. And we used to take either once or twice a year, we used to take a vacation, but you planned for it and did it because we had to earn revenue and earn income. There was no stock market. There was nothing of that to help you on that. There was no other supporting function or ways of earning. And then the next generation, which is the Gen X, Gen Y, basically they worked because they wanted to have a holiday. And they used to, again, worked because not that they had insufficient income, but because they really wanted to go out and enjoy their life. Mm-hmm. Now it's the millennials and the Gen Z where they don't differentiate between work and play. I work because I enjoy it. Professions have changed completely. You can be in the entertainment industry as a DJ, disco. I mean, those professions didn't exist earlier. If your passion is music, you don't become a successful musician. You can become a DJ or an entertainer or a comedian or whatever else you want, and you can make sufficient money. So work is play. Mm-hmm. Therefore, this question of work-life balance is immaterial because they won't work for you if they don't like the environment and they don't like the job which they're doing. Yeah. So I think the point I'm just trying to make is that succeeding generations require different cultures, different work ethics, and organizations have had to adapt to that. And I think the biggest challenge at the present moment is how to motivate the Gen Z. Because they're rebelling against the fact that I have to come and do a 9-to-5 job. They don't want to do a 9-to-5 job. So how do you make it more interesting?
That's a big tension in companies. Yeah. Culture versus keeping Gen Z happy.
That's right.
So many thanks, Bhaskar. There are some great questions which remain unasked and unaddressed. I also had a whole bunch of them which I can't because of paucity of time. So I like to thank you for making time, joining us. Fantastic insights. So we'll love to get you back some other day as well to speak to us again. And just to close, I like to say that those in the audience who are not members of YDMA at the moment should think about signing up, because it's a great platform to learn from leaders like Bhaskar, and we'll continue to work towards the benefit of the community. So many thanks, Bhaskar, and many thanks to everyone who joined and asked questions or otherwise benefited from this conversation. So thanks, everyone. I'm closing the call now.
And thanks to the audience for listening to me patiently. And thanks, Pranav, for comparing the session.
Thank you very much, Bhaskar.
Thank you.
For the place. Bye.